just wrapped up our homeschool morning, so I thought I would give you an in-depth look at exactly what we did today. I did not do a vlog style / homeschool with us style because I recently did one of those, so today I wanted to do something a little bit different where I'm opening each book and really just showing you guys exactly what we did today. So the reason why I wanted to do this video differently is to really give you guys a different look of our homeschool curriculum and exactly what we do on the day-to-day basis. However, I also wanted to mention and to throw out there as a disclaimer that this is what we did today. This is not what we do every day. Every day is going to be a little bit different. We might have a different priority. We might do all extracurricular / more hands-on learning versus core subjects. Some days, honestly, more days than not, we're only sticking to the 3 main core subjects that we have in our homeschool, and then everything else is child-led learning based on what they're interested in. Typically, before I start our homeschool morning, my 1st and 2nd grader will actually pick what subject it is that they want to do first. I love giving them the option to choose what they want to do first instead of just saying, let's do math, let's do, I don't know. I feel like giving them a choice really keeps them involved in the decision making, and it gives them a little bit of decision making power, I should say, when it comes to how they want their homeschool morning to look like. So I'm giving them the opportunity to take all 3 core subjects, which are the 3 things that we do hit every single day. Everything extra I'm going to be showing you that we did today is our hit or miss things, but these are the 3 things that we do every single day. There are 4 books here, but these 2 go together. That's why I'm saying it's 3 things. Anyway, I let them choose exactly what they want to do, and they will open up their book. So today, my son opened up his math book. He picked the lesson that he was ready for. What he likes to do, my 2nd grader, is he likes to open up the lesson, see how long it is, and then he judges what he likes to do first based on how long the lessons are. So for him, he likes to do the hard parts first. So for him, it's probably math because the lessons can be a little bit long, even though we don't do an entire lesson per day. They are a little bit long, and it's not his favorite subject. So he prefers to do this first, and then he likes moving on to language arts next, and then he loves ending the day with reading. He loves reading. He's becoming very fluent in reading, and so he likes ending his school morning doing something that just makes him feel very confident, and he just thrives doing this at the end. So that's typically what he will choose. However, sometimes he will have a short lesson in math, so much to the point where maybe there's only 1 or 2 pages per lesson, or even 3. And some of the problems, because of the lessons are long, and I'll show you exactly what we did today and what problems we crossed out. But sometimes the lessons are shorter. So if they are shorter, sometimes we'll do language arts first. If the lesson in his first reader here, which he's almost done with, but if the story is really long, sometimes we'll want to do this first. So he likes, again, picking the thing based off the hardest and then go to the easiest for him. My 1st grader, which I'm going to do a video exactly like this and talking about my 1st grader and exactly how we do things with her. It's very, very similar, but she has a little bit of a different strategy when it comes to how she likes to plan her homeschool morning. But again, I love giving them the option and the opportunity to plan exactly what, again, they want their homeschool to look like. So the first thing this morning, we started out doing a little devotional from the Ology. I love this book. It's been wonderful. I got this to go along with our gentle and classical curriculum that we've been doing hit or miss, more often miss than getting it done. But we've just been loving this. So he's doing lesson 54, and I say him, this is a family type study and a family type discussion. So he does this, but I also will be sharing this book with my 1st graders video coming up because, again, this is a family thing. So we gather to worship. So we'll read this. This is our scripture memory verse for the week. They loved this lesson in particular because they also have little violins and they love playing little violins. So they loved today's little devotional. I love it because this is very short and sweet. It packs a punch when it comes to the actual theology behind what they're talking about, and it has the memory verses and everything like that. So I genuinely really have been loving this book, especially when it comes to starting our homeschool morning. This was before we even sat down for school. So I did this while they were finishing up breakfast. The reason why I like doing this, not during breakfast per se, mostly because I like to eat with them. I'm really hungry in the morning as well. But I will do this after I am done eating, and then I'll read it right before I clean up from the dishes, because that's their opportunity where mommy's hands are busy cleaning up from the breakfast mess. But we can get into some really fun and beautiful discussions from going from reading this to that discussion while they're free playing. So I love doing it that way. So that was the first thing that we did this morning. This thing that we did actually start our homeschool morning off with was the 50 states. If you guys are new here, my husband and I this year are traveling a little bit, doing a couple of different homeschooling conventions, and we've had a ton of fun going to the different states. And whenever we go to a state, we'll open this up and we'll learn about that state and what we can see and just a little bit about it. So in this one, we learned about the upcoming state that we'll be going to, and that was just a ton of fun to make that come alive. And so when we head out next week, it's going to be even more fun to see that. So this is what we actually started our homeschool morning with after we all sat down together. It was maybe 8 to 10 minutes of just looking over the page. They like taking, again, their little magnifying glass and looking at the map and everything like that. So they loved doing that, and that started off really our entire homeschool morning. And then that is when he moved into picking his core curriculum. And today he chose math. Like he does most mornings, he does prefer to choose math. So I'm going to go to the lesson that we did today just so you get a really good idea of exactly what we do, at least today, what we did. We ended up doing 2 lessons of math because this one was only 2 pages. So he cut out the tangram pieces on page 87. He already did that. And then he used all the rectangles and triangles and squares and tried to fill in the parallelogram, the 4 triangles to cover this rectangle, and to use all the pieces to cover the bird. So he had fun doing that. And then we did move on because, as I mentioned before, our family is traveling a lot right now. So we've kind of had to buckle down on the weeks that we are home solid, like say we're home straight for 7 straight days. Then I am trying to get to that 4 to 5 days, but also 4 to 5 lessons of math, even though it's a lot, because I'm going to be sharing in an upcoming video exactly how we homeschool while traveling, and we don't take this with us. So I try to make sure that when we are home, we are diligent in getting a full lesson done, if that makes sense. However, I also read what their kind of, I don't know, like attention span is for sure, but also what they're able to actually comprehend. And today, so he did this part here. It only took about 10 minutes to do these 2 pages. And then he did, this is mostly just reading. We learned about borrowing to subtract. Then he did the first 5 problems. We practiced that, 2 story problems. And then he did this page. Now this is the page that I wanted to share with you guys in case you are looking at CLE math or really anything Christian Light Education. It can be, and I've mentioned before on my channel many times, very work heavy. But I genuinely do love that because it gives them so much extra practice if they need it. But if they don't, and I do not feel bad crossing them out. So today I crossed out 1, 2, 3, 4 problems, and then he did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I thought that was a good balance, and I kind of pick one of each one. So the money's like bringing the decimal point down. I know that's something that he needs practice with, so I kept those in, but I did eliminate some of the other things that maybe weren't necessary that he does really well with. That's what I do with CLE pretty much with every single lesson. And then we have another story problem, and then down here we had like our fill in the blanks. That was all he did for math. So we did an entire, technically, it was an entire 1 lesson and then 1, 2, 3 pages of the next one. So tomorrow he's only going to do this page, and we'll probably learn about what we're doing next. For me, it's about pages, I think, more than actually completing the lesson. So for example, this was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pages. So tomorrow we'll probably do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And these problems right here, I'm going to be crossing out probably this whole entire row, half of these, because he, again, is really doing well on that, and I don't feel like it's a huge necessity, but I do want to cover all the new material. But again, I love the sound program that CLE offers with their math. It's just so open and go, and again, it gives me the opportunity as the mama to pick and choose exactly what it is that they need. So that's what we did for math. Again, it was 5 pages, 2 pages probably of actual workbook things, and that was all. That was all we did. So there is his math. All right, so welcome to another day. My camera ended up dying, and then by the time I realized it, it was too late, and I did not have time to refilm. So we're the next day. It's early in the morning, so I decided to come outside. So hopefully you can hear me. It's gorgeous out today. The birds are singing, and it is just beautiful. So I'm getting in a little bit of the first light, and it's absolutely amazing. So I think this is where we left off yesterday. I shared with you what we did for math, but now I'm going to talk about language arts and exactly what we did. We took a very long break from the CLE language arts too. We took probably 2.5, almost 3 months off completely. and then we're just now adding it back in very slowly. This is why we're only on light unit 203. I have found that with CLE language arts, it actually goes together beautifully using the McGuffies as their core reading. However, because I've been using these bookmarks along with our McGuffie reading, I found that when we opened this back up, we already knew all the concepts that they were teaching. So now, what I am utilizing the language arts for the CLE language arts anyway, is just to act as a little bit of a guide for me. We don't hit every lesson, we don't even hit every concept. We just do as needed. So I'm going to show you exactly what we did yesterday so you can kind of tell. So for example, contractions. Now we could easily cover contractions in the McGuffies, and we do cover the contractions in the McGuffies. So what I've been doing, bless you, so what I've been doing incorporating the CLE language arts with the McGuffies, what I'm doing now is actually using this as a guide to where, okay, so our lesson book says contractions. So we're going to open up our story. We're going to see if we can find a contraction, and we're going to see what 2 words the contraction makes and things like that. So for language arts yesterday, we matched the words to the contractions. We will typically do this. It depends on, as I mentioned in the beginning of the video, he does pick the order of what he likes to do his homework in. So if he wants to do reading first, then we'll look at this and then go back to his reading, see what he's looking for contractions, etc. If we do this first, then we'll keep an eye out for contractions as we're reading the story, if that makes sense. So no matter what we're doing, we are incorporating it right alongside with the McGuffie. So yesterday we did the contraction page. Then we wrote contractions for the bold words, so I am, who is, so wasn't, didn't, and I'll. And then we learned about pronouns and nouns. But as I just mentioned, I had been using this solely for our language arts and grammar, reading, everything. So we had already covered what pronouns, nouns, verbs, adjectives, we've already been covering that for the past like 2 months in here. So we're not even really needing this per se. This is just kind of an extra practice to really plant deeply the concepts that he's learned, and it helps me as a homeschool mama to really see that he's understanding exactly what is being taught, and I love that. And I'm using this as well because when I first started using the McGuffies, I didn't know really anything about how to use them other than I really wanted to use them after seeing a lot of other mamas share about the simplicity and just how easy and simple and straightforward yet sound, and you can cater it to exactly what your children need help with, what they, just everything. I just love them so much. But adding this alongside this has just been wonderful. And I think why it's been wonderful is I'm still new to the McGuffies, so I'm also new to having the confidence and covering all those things with my little ones. So when I open this back up, and I saw that he already knew all of this, it gave me the confidence as a mama saying, like, I am covering the material that we need to by just doing the McGuffies. And that made me so happy and, again, very confident as the homeschooling mama and teacher by realizing, you know what, we're doing everything we need to by doing this and just this. And it's amazing to me how just, you know, the bookmarks make sure this is making sure that I have all of my I's dotted and T's crossed when it comes to parts of speech and things like that. And I absolutely love that. So I wanted to share that's kind of how I'm using this now, more as a guide to keep me on track until I am 100% confident to close it and just solely rely on the bookmarks and some other simple grammar guides to help us along the way. Anyway, that's why we've added this back on. Yesterday, he did do a little bit of the spelling exercises, as well as he's also been learning how to do book reports. And this has been his favorite activity thus far with this book. So as I mentioned before, we're using this as a guide now. All the pages are not complete, as you can tell, but we are doing some of the exercises. So he's learned about book reporting. So he did his first book report. It was on that book that I showed you in the beginning when I was talking about doing language arts book reports. So he learned that. We do not do any of the extra activities or quizzes. And so today, since this is early morning, oh, thank you. So today he's going to be giving your book report. So we're going to be also introducing cursive writing and things like that. So this is why we're only on 203, because we just started adding it back in. And again, it's just as needed. It's not something right now that I would consider to be 100% necessity for our language arts program. So moving on to our actual McGuffie readers. Again, I just showed you guys kind of what we could do already. But yesterday, he read the story, Never Do Mischief. What we will do every single morning when we do this, this part of the morning anyway, we will start with our study words. We'll make sure we know them, make sure they're fluent. Sometimes we'll read the list twice, sometimes 3 times, depending. What I like to do is we'll pick out suffixes, so ing, ed, and we'll talk about compound words. So this is what I was saying, where this is not becoming 100% necessity because I am using what the McGuffies has already given us. Like, we're talking about your suffixes, we're talking about compound words, we're talking about vocabulary. What do these words mean? What does deranged mean? When you're frightened, what is another word for frightened? So you can use just this and have a very rich thing if you're intentional about, again, what are the suffixes, compound words, all of those wonderful things that we would be learning in here. We are now learning within 30 seconds. But anyway, so now we're learning everything that we would take maybe 15 minutes to do in here. We're learning it within like 2 minutes by doing it this way, because we're just doing the necessities and within the actual practice. And then for the practice, whether it be compound words or endings, we're actually reading the story and making the language arts part come to life by incorporating it into the story. So we do this part every morning as part of our reading/language arts, because again, I am having him pick out adjectives, verbs, nouns, pronouns, common nouns, proper nouns, all of those things within here. And after he's done reading and I go back and ask him questions about finding me things and finding what an adjective is or an adverb and things like that, he already knows all that, and that's not even anything that we've covered in here yet. So that's what I mean, where I'm using this as a little bit of a guide to keep me on track as far as making sure we're getting all of our concepts covered, but we don't do it every day. So I wanted to mention that as far as how we really do language arts, but using those bookmarks again from Land of Kakiak have been a huge blessing for our family. So after we're done reading this, I will then open up the parent-teacher guide that goes along with it. So let me jump ahead to the lesson that we're on. So we'll also do another vocabulary lesson. We'll learn about what deranged means, what some of the other words mean. Then we're going to explain to our student that the story is frightening, but it can teach us something. So we're going to also read, and I do love that they incorporate scripture with a lot of these stories in the McGuffies. We're going to read Proverbs 10 through 23, and then we also talked about what we can think what might happen on the playground or elsewhere if we play thoughtless pranks on others. And then so my son, after we talked about this, like, what are some things and some etiquette things? Like, if you go to the playground, you're playing with other little people. If we're going to the park and you see other little people, what are some kind things that we can do with them to do them? And a list of, like, I guess, happy rules, he likes to call them, for play and at school, or if we come across some, like, little friends and stuff. So I wanted to share that as far as this being a really good resource for taking the story a little bit deeper. And I love this because this teacher guide, this is open and go. For the most part, like with reading, you can pick apart, your parts of speech and stuff with the help of the bookmarks, but this is just amazing to add on to that enrichment part. It gives you discussion points. It gives you kind of help as a mama to start those discussions, and it really does bring this lesson, even though it's, yes, reading, yes, it's language arts, but it brings it into a beautiful character lesson, is what I've learned. When it comes to the McGuffies, there's always some type of a character lesson or a story being taught. So I loved using that with this. That is what we did for language arts. Again, we did a couple of pages out of here as our guide. We skipped half of the lesson, and then we just jumped straight into reading and then picking out our parts of speech. Had some discussion on that, and that was it for language arts. So our core curriculum today, and the math is inside, but so math, language arts, and our reading, it took under an hour and a half. And that was with having a few little wiggle breaks in between, like getting up. So as I mentioned before, I do like to give my kiddos that 5 to 10 minute break in between subjects. It helps them to concentrate more, and they just seem to thrive better off of doing that. So the last thing I wanted to share is we actually we were doing a list out of the end of lesson 7. It was beautiful out yesterday, so we ended up bringing a blanket outside. We laid in the warm sunshine. I asked them how to spell the words, and we did it that way. And that was all we did for spelling. It wasn't anything writing out. It was just a verbal thing. I love using this verbally, as well as there's Ray's arithmetic, and I use that for story problems. So if I'm in the kitchen and I know we need maybe a little bit of extra help with some spelling lists or some story problems and math things, I will get these out and just do them orally. This is, again, not something we do on a regular basis, but we did do it yesterday by just laying outside and going over some words orally and verbally. So that was what we did for spelling. Anyway, that I think covers everything that we did. I'm going to go ahead and let you guys go. I'll be sharing exactly what we did for my first grader in an upcoming video. But until then, you guys have a great day, and God bless. Bye, guys.